You did everything they said would fix you. The shadow work, the inner child healing, the therapy. You faced your darkness and made it through. But now, there's nothing. No fire, no hunger, no spark. Just a quiet emptiness you can't explain. You thought healing would feel like freedom, but instead, it feels like you've lost yourself. Carl Jung once said, "The collapse of the persona is often mistaken for depression." What you're feeling isn't failure. It's the sacred pause, the silence between the death of who you were and the birth of who you're becoming. This emptiness isn't a breakdown. It's an initiation. Before healing, much of your drive came from fear. The fear of rejection, of inadequacy, of not being enough. Your fire was really anxiety disguised as ambition. Now, that fear is gone. The old engine has stopped running, and without it, you feel lost, directionless. But this stillness isn't laziness. It's liberation from internal manipulation. As Jung, Nietzsche, and Viktor Frankl all reminded us, many mistake disengagement from illusion for depression. But what's really happening is the withdrawal from old scripts, the ones written by parents, culture, and pain. When the false fire dies, a deeper flame begins to flicker, one fueled not by trauma or validation, but by truth. This phase has a name in alchemy: Nigredo, the blackening, the dissolution of everything you thought you were. It's the dark night of the soul, where identity melts and something ancient starts to awaken. You are no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. You are in the in-between, the liminal space, the silence between identities. Our culture worships productivity, movement, constant becoming. But here's the truth: stillness is sacred. You don't lack motivation. You've simply outgrown manipulation. In this silence, a new voice begins to whisper. Not the loud, anxious voice of survival, but the quiet, magnetic voice of the self. The new why doesn't come from fear. It comes from alignment, from truth, from essence. True transformation isn't about reigniting the old fire. It's about discovering a new flame, one that burns from truth, not trauma. You're not becoming someone new. You're returning to someone ancient, the original you, beneath all conditioning. This void you're in, it's not a grave, it's a womb, a sacred space where the old dissolves so the real can emerge. Remember this: you are not broken. You are between versions of yourself. You didn't lose your fire. You let the false one die. You're not falling behind. You're shedding illusions. When you stop living from fear, when healing is no longer about fixing, you begin to find meaning in stillness. You stop performing and start becoming. Healing was never the end. It was always the beginning of wholeness. You didn't break. You shed. You didn't collapse. You outgrew. What felt like dying was actually beginning. The void you're in right now isn't the end of your story. It's the rewriting of it. For the first time in your life, you're not being pulled by survival or pushed by fear. You're standing in the open, without scripts, without masks, without noise. And that silence feels unbearable, because you've spent years mistaking chaos for aliveness. But silence is where truth finally has room to speak. This is the space every mystic, artist, and seeker has walked through. The desert before revelation, the winter before spring, the dark cocoon before the wings. The alchemists called it Nigredo, the blackening, where everything false must rot away so that gold can form. And right now, you are in that sacred blackness, not broken, becoming.
It's tempting to fill the silence, to chase another goal, another healing, another version of you. But the real work now is to stay, to not rush the rebirth, to trust that something ancient inside you knows exactly what it's doing. You're not lost. You're being rewritten. You're not done. You're being prepared. Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And that's what this emptiness really is. The ache of consciousness expanding. The stretching of the soul as it grows beyond its old shell. When the false self dies, the mind calls it death, but the soul calls it truth.